I have shelves and shelves of paint, but I only really use 5 colours when I'm weathering. Raw umber, burnt sienna, buff titanium, sometimes called natural, sap green and black. No white, you say? More on that later. But first, let's just run through what I use these colours for, neat out of the bottle. First up, burnt sienna. It's great for rust. It's a more weathered rust, and I use it dabbed on with a sponge to add rust specks and dots around the edges of any piece. I use a sponge and raw umber whenever I want a sort of darker, worn look. It's great for a very old metal, but just anything with weathering, dirt, accumulation. Oh, it's my favourite colour. This has the catchy name of chrome green tint, and I use it where I want to add moss or lichen. To be honest, it's the colour I use the least, as sci-fi spaceships don't have a lot of green on them. But a colour I love is buff titanium or natural. I only really use it with a sponge dabbed onto something like a ground piece like this. And this is an important reminder to thin your paints. These are artist acrylics. If you don't thin them, you'll get brush marks. This is my garage door. It's black because I painted it black, but the weathering on it is dust coloured. It's not black. Even the deepest, darkest shadow on a sunny day is not pure black. So that means I only use black in weathering when I'm mixing it with something else. Like here, buff titanium, that favourite colour of mine. It makes a wonderful warm grey. I'll show you at the end what it looks like with white instead of buff titanium. But there's another point to note here. Start with the light buff titanium rather than the black, or you're going to be using an awful lot of it trying to get your black to look like a grey. And then you can just paint it onto a building, wipe it off, and you've got a concrete colour. If you thin your paints further, you get a wash. Here I'm using burnt sienna to go over the dabbed rust dots that I put on earlier to create a rusted object. You can do the same with the green, anywhere you need a slimy, grimy colour. And for dark dirt weathering, worn, really old, rusted metal, you can't beat raw umber thinned to a wash. Here I'm layering it over the sponge buff titanium I showed earlier to get a more mellow feel. And of course you can mix any of them together to add even more colours into your arsenal. Here I wanted a darker rust wash, so it's a mix of burnt sienna and raw umber. I mentioned white earlier, and yes, I do use it, but I don't use it as much as you might think. And here's why. If I mix buff titanium into burnt sienna, I get a colour that's not bad, it's not good, it's not really light or rust, but it's an okay colour. If I mix white into burnt sienna, I get a pinky peach that's really disgusting. If I try and make it into a grey, I get a really cold grey. Now, that may be right for some modern buildings, but generally if you just want to weather for grime, dirt, accumulations, it doesn't look natural. I can add white into all the other colours on here, and they just don't look as good as when they're mixed with buff titanium. So should you use white? Yes, it's like black, just use it sparingly. I used it in this grey to lighten it up a bit, but there's still a lot of buff titanium in there too. So there we go, the 5 colours I use the most. I also have them in oils for when I want to do washes and use streaks that way. They're such valuable colours to have, and you can get them in bog standard artists' ranges. They don't have to be expensive model paints, which means when you're doing big terrain, it can be a lot cheaper. All the buildings I'm showing here are from my latest Kickstarter, The Training Grounds. It's live now. I'll put a link in the description, so pop on over to check it out.